Okay, let's start with the final and probably the most complex part of this project, calculating the points. So we will start by creating our first point digit. As we have before, we will just clone one of the existing ones, and we might clone the behinds. So duplicate that. I'll give the appropriate name. In this case, it's going to be home points digit 1. Now, its functionality is going to be quite different to the behinds for a couple of reasons. We certainly do want it to be set to 0 when we start, and we want it to be in the right spot. And we've got 3 digits here, so I want to make sure I've got enough space for them all there. But its message handling is going to be a little bit different. For a start, it's going to be responding primarily to the home score changed message rather. And what it does there is going to be quite different to what we did in any of our previous buttons. So different, in fact, I'm just going to delete all those out of hand. Now, I just want to make sure that even with those tiny little changes, everything is still okay. So I'm going to do a quick test here. I'm expecting that when I start, that that first sprite that we created for the home points is reset to 0, and everything else should work pretty much as expected. Excellent. Okay, so with that confidence established, I need to look at what this digit needs to do when it's been told the home score has changed. You should be able to see in the top left-hand corner the variable we created in the previous part of this lesson, which tells us what the current home score actually is. And that's going to be key to working out what to display for these points here. Now, the problem that we have in extracting that value, which at the moment is 36, and using it to set the appropriate value for this single digit, in which case would be 6, is because of some of the constraints with the way that Scratch allows you to handle those variables and inspect the value of those variables. Now I'm going to insert a fair bit of code here, and hopefully it'll make sense to you. I'll try and explain as I go along. Basically what we need to do is we need to set up 3 different scenarios, and that's one scenario for each of the 3 different lengths of that home score variable. There's one scenario when it's only a single digit, so from 0 to 9. There's another scenario when it's 10 to 99, or 2 digits. And then there's yet another scenario for 100 and above, 3 digits. And the reasons for that hopefully should become clear. So to set up multiple scenarios, I'm going to start with an if-else statement. And the condition for the if is going to be initially handling when we have just one digit in our home score, so a value 0 to 9. That's our first condition we want to handle. Now, the way we know whether that's the case or not is we go to our operators, and I'm going to have a look at the less than operator. So what I want to say is basically, what I'd like to say is the value in home score less than 10, but I can't find a way to do that in Scratch. So I've got to do something which feels like a bit of a hack to me, which is to say, is the length of the value in home score less than 2? And by implication, if it's less than 2, it's going to be 1. So a length of 1 means it's a value of 0 to 9. Okay. Hope you're following me for this. So if the length of, so if the length of home score is less than 2, then we have a 1-digit home score. And what we now want to do is we want to set the costume of our first points digit to be the appropriate value. So the way we do that is we say switch costume to, and I originally thought that the only choices I had here was to actually select one of these predefined values from the list of costumes for this particular sprite, but I can get a bit more complex than that. I can actually dynamically build up the name of this costume, and that's indeed what I need to do. And the way to do that is I'm going to join 2 strings together, and you'll notice that the name of each of those costumes was a number and then the words, or then the phrase hyphen pixel. So I'm going to join hyphen pixel to something. I don't want it to be hello. I actually want it to be the first digit in the score. And the way I do that is by saying I want to join letter 1 of the value of home score. Okay, so when I have a 1-digit home score, letter 1 of the home score should be the number itself. Okay, so it should be 0 through 9. So I'm taking that value, I'm joining that together with the string -pixel to form a name which matches one of the costumes associated with that sprite. Now, I'm going to do a quick test here and make sure this works. In theory, as long as our score is in 1 digit only, then we should be able to see that first points digit clicking over appropriately. And before I do that, I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure, and I haven't, that when we start the application, we actually set that home score value to 0. We want to make sure we start off with a 0 score. Okay, so with that in place, let's have a quick look here. Let's see what happens when I increase my behinds. In theory, I should get 1 extra behind, and the home score should be incremented to 1, and we've tested that this happens already. But in addition to that, we should also see the points digit click over to 1 as well, if my message handling and logic has all worked so far. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so what we should find is that happily goes up to 9, and then it stays there, because the condition I have around when I change the costume is not going to be executed anymore, because the length of the home score is no longer going to be less than 2. Okay. So what do we want to do when the length of the home score is no longer less than 2? What about when it's 2 digits or even 3 digits? Well, we have other stuff we need to do there. Fairly similar to what we've done before, but slightly different as well. And to implement that, I'm going to add in an extra if-else block there. And my condition on that new if-else block is actually quite similar to what I had before. This time, instead of checking that the length of the home score is less than 2, in other words, it's 1 digit, I'm going to check that it's less than 3. If it's less than 3, we know, because we're inside this part of that big if condition, that we're going to have a 2-digit home score. It's going to be 10 through to 99. And in that particular case, we still actually want to change our costume, but we want to change it using a slightly different condition. So I'm still going to put a switch costume statement in there, but we can no longer, the problem with the way that it currently is, just by duplicating that switch costume, is that we can no longer just do a join on letter 1 of home score, because letter 1 in a 2-digit score is going to be the leftmost one. So in the case where our home score is currently 12, letter 1 is going to be 1. That's not going to work for that first digit. We actually want it to be the second letter. Okay. Now, hopefully you followed that. Let's do a quick test and see what happens now. So we know that we can increment our points digit okay up until the point where it gets to 9. So let's quickly get it to 9. And there we go. And then let's increment again. Okay, so now you can see that it's continuing to increment. And of course, it's not the correct points value because we're only displaying 1 digit there, but it's correct for that 1 digit. The value that you see in the points should be the same as the last digit you see in the home score. All right. Now, we're not completely finished though, because there's another bug around there, and you've probably already worked out what it is. Once we get beyond 2 digits and into 3 digits, you should see that it's now, the home score is now at 96. When I click another goal and it goes to 102, if this was working properly, the points digit should be reset to 2, but it's not. It stays at 6 because we haven't implemented the third part of that conditional logic we had in there. But let's quickly do that now. So I'm going to duplicate that switch costume again, and again, you're probably ahead of me on this. Instead of letter 2, it's letter 3. Let's do a quick test. Okay, seems to be working okay for 1 and 2 digit scores. Let's see if we can fast forward up into 3-digit scores, and indeed that seems to be working okay as well.